Here we go.
I am so excited about this. Oh yeah, this is where Mr. Magera teaches Mrs. Magera. Look at us both having long hair.
Yeah, we're looking.
We just got back from the pool, from our backyard. We have a kiddie pool. We swim with Benjamin. Okay, anyway, I'm really excited about this because tell them.
Okay, today we're talking about the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Sometimes we call them short and just call them Republicans, but we don't like to do that because it's different than the Republican Party United States.
Yeah, it's not the
today.
same right now.
So Democratic Republicans,
different.
like their long name, sometimes called Republicans, but they're different. So just make sure you know that.
But this guy.
Yes, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
But that's why I'm excited.
Okay, she likes Hamilton.
You guys, have you seen Hamilton? It's so good. There is some language. It's so good.
Okay.
Okay, let's learn about it.
Let's get going. So, Washington had just become president. You guys remember there was the Constitutional Convention. They throw out the Articles of Confederation, throw the whole thing out, decide on a new government by the Constitution, and George Washington, who was a leader in the U.S. Revolutionary War, becomes president. There's some picture of him. But when the United States becomes president, when George Washington becomes president, the United States has a lot of issues. It's very much in debt.
What issues does he have?
It's very much. The United States is very much in debt. People aren't sure if the United States is going to survive. They're not sure if states are going to be able to get along.
Wait,
and they're not sure what this government's going to look like either. What
was was it like not even a question that Washington was going to be president? Was that someone that every party was like, okay, we like him?
Pretty much everyone liked him. Yes, he's the only president to be voted in unanimously. So only president who not every single delegate voted for him. Yeah. So
is he old?
He was very old, yes. He would only die, he would die about 15 years after he was elected president.
I thought it was 4 years.
Oh, after he's done.
Done, because he was in there for 8.
So yeah, gotcha. 12 years. So 4 years after his presidency. So yeah, so this is the issues that Washington's having. He has 2 people on his cabinet, which are basically like his assistants, kind of, his cabinet. And they have and one is Alexander Hamilton,
Woo!
And the other one is Thomas Jefferson. Woo!
Well,
I like Thomas Jefferson.
He is funny in the play.
Okay, but
he's actually Mr. Magera's favorite president.
I think you might actually change your perspective on Alexander Hamilton after this, but we'll see.
Really?
Because the play really skips over a lot of his bad things. I was refreshing for this, and I'm like, they do kind of skip over a lot of Alexander Hamilton's failures.
There is a song where they talk about him doing bad things. They don't really get into it.
Yeah. Okay, but anyways. They are 2 members of Jefferson's cabinet, so they're assistants, and they disagree. And Hamilton supporters are going to be called the Federalists, and those who support Thomas Jefferson are called Democratic Republicans. And they both disagree on how the government should work. You can see this cartoon.
Which one's which?
This is Thomas Jefferson, and this is Alexander Hamilton. So, in this cartoon, you can see that they're both kind of arguing, trying to fight over this nation, going to pull it down and have it fall while George Washington looks on. But yeah,
But George Washington liked Hamilton best.
He would like Hamilton best, but by a little bit. He also liked Jefferson. So, but anyway, so these 2, Jefferson and Hamilton, disagree. And let's look real quick and see what the difference of their 2 parties were. So the Federalists.
Oh, so they were the leaders
first. Yes, they were pretty much the leaders of their party, the main people. So the Federalists by Hamilton. Background, he worked himself up from poverty. Most Federalists, though, were pretty rich people from the North. They're having their land.
He came from the Caribbean.
Yes, Hamilton did, yes. But most rich people weren't. They enjoyed debates. They spoke well. They always dressed very nice and very fancy. They wanted to look their very best. Show off their wealth, kind of. They wanted manufacturers. They wanted cities and merchants and United States to have factories. They wanted the federal government to have a lot of power, too. They didn't want the states to have power, but instead the federal central government to be very powerful. They're also in favor of banks to collect taxes and to pay bills, so for a national bank, which they will get put in place. So those are the Federalists. Think big government, like manufacturing, like cities, dressing very richly.
So you'd have less state laws and more federal laws, meaning everyone has to abide by the same rules.
Then Democratic Republicans are the Thomas Jefferson, and he is the leader of it. He's a wealthy Virginian planter, and a lot of them were farmers. A lot of the more average people, lower economic status, slightly less wealthy than the Federalists, but they would they dressed and acted like everyday people. They didn't try to dress up fancy. They thought dressing up fancy and rich things was snobby, that we should just be like the average American. They really wanted farms. In fact, one of Jefferson's big things is that he wanted each person to have their own land, their own farm they could plant. That's what a free person have. They should have their own small farm, be able to work on that, not be in cities or in factories, but instead have their own farms. He thought that states should have more power than the federal government, that they fought this whole revolution to get away from a big central government with lots of taxes. Why the heck would we go back to it? Let's keep the government small. And then he also opposed the bank. He thought that this gives too much power to the federal government. He didn't like how the government was getting in debt and getting so big. He opposed that. But Hamilton's going to get George Washington to make the bank anyways. He actually does a trade where he says, will you allow us to have a bank and then of the United States, and Jefferson will move the capital down in Virginia where you live. So that's why Washington, D.C. ended up where it was, because they agreed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to zone out. You guys don't zone out if you're listening. I was thinking about Mrs. Magera's tea. That's what was happening. John Adams.
John Adams. Yes.
I know him.
Okay, so yes, he becomes president after George Washington.
Wow, the other guys looked so great in their portraits.
Yeah, he's got like this size fuzz, the bald head. Yeah.
Bald head.
Yeah. But he becomes president after George Washington, and he actually runs against Jefferson. So Adams is a Federalist, and he's running against the leader of the Democratic Republicans, Jefferson. And Adams ends up winning. He beats Jefferson narrowly. But then Adams starts doing some things in his first 4 years, because you can only be president for, you have 2 terms. You can be
4 years, and then you have to get reelected.
Yeah, for another 4 years, for 8 in total. But Adams passes what's called the Alien and Sedition Act, and basically Hamilton kind of engineers this for him. And what it does, this is pretty shady, pretty sketchy.
Ooh.
But basically what it does is makes it illegal to criticize the government. So you can't criticize the other party.
I did read that.
And what it also does is it hurts immigrants. It makes it harder for immigrants to become citizens because they knew these immigrants would vote against the Federalists.
Which is really rude because Hamilton was an immigrant.
Yes, but he makes this law to make sure that immigrants are harder to become citizens.
So Hamilton was shady.
Hamilton was shady, yeah. This is very shady. And the Democratic Republicans have a field day with this. They're like, look at this government. It's repressing us. They're throwing newspaper writers in jail who are criticizing the government. This is wrong. This is not right. They're making it hard for illegal immigrants to come in. We need to take over. We need to have these Federalists be gone because they want the government to be big and strong and just like the king. We're going back to what England was. And you can see in this cartoon, right, the sedition bill's like this giant snake, and it's about to bite down the free press, free speech, and honest opinion. It's about to destroy them all.
Yeah, totally. And, I mean, you have an amendment of free speech, right?
Yeah, first Bill of Rights. First Amendment, yeah. Free speech, yeah. So, Federalist demise, the end of the Federalists, okay? So, after this, the Alien Sedition Act and the National Bank were very unpopular, mainly because it only really helped the rich people and the Federalists who were in charge. And most Americans were not helped by this, and they disagreed with this. And this would lead for TJ, that's Thomas Jefferson. Sorry, I abbreviated it just because Thomas Jefferson's a huge thing to write.
Oh, this was a part of Mrs. Magera's tea.
Beating Adams for president. He beats Adams for president in 1800. You can see most of his supporters are in the South. The North up here is where Adams' supporters are. But Jefferson becomes the next president. Soon after Hamilton becomes president, Hamilton is going to die in a duel. He fights Thomas Jefferson's vice president, gets shot, and dies.
Aaron Burr.
Yes, that's the guy, the vice president. So he shoots him. He gets shot, and then he dies. And the Federalists will never really be in power again. They lose the presidency, and that's basically it. Yeah. So that is the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans.
So now it's time for Mrs. Magera's tea. Okay, so like I've been saying this entire episode, we just watched Hamilton, which is a Broadway show about Alexander Hamilton and his whole entire life. And like you said, he is kind of shady. And I won't go into the specifics of his whole life, but there's a lot of things that he did that I'm like, shady. But yeah, pretty shady. Anyway, But to get back to what you said about the duel, so just to like overview, this is some tea. If there ever was some tea, this was some tea. So basically, when it got down to it, it was between Thomas Jefferson and this man, Aaron Burr. And the way that it worked back then is the first person became president, and the second with the most votes became vice president. You didn't run with like right now, Donald Trump is with Mike Pence. It wasn't like that. You didn't get to choose who your vice president was. Anyway, so
They would change that right after
they
this.
changed it right
Yeah.
because of this kind
Yeah.
of. So Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr ended up tying. Okay, it was a tie, and so then they had
for vote for president.
for president.
Even though Aaron Burr was supposed to be the vice president.
Aaron Burr, it was always planned. So
Yeah.
really, Aaron Burr was super shady also, but he was always gonna be the vice president. But then Thomas Jefferson, but then he like really tries to get this presidency. He's like can't because he realized like, oh, I have a shot, to be number one instead of number two, and so then that made Thomas Jefferson really mad, and so that's why they changed the rule, because he's like, you're not gonna like say bad things about me and then be my vice president. What is up with that? Shady. So anyway, what happened was it became a tie, but Hamilton, he was like sitting off in the distance, and he wasn't saying anything about either of them because Burr wasn't a part of his party. They were both a part of the
He didn't.
So
he was
Hamilton
against both
wasn't
of them.
saying who he was gonna vote for because John Adams was so out of it. And they both went to him and asked them to endorse. And Aaron Burr had actually known Hamilton for a long time. And Hamilton hated Thomas Jefferson. Like, hated him. But he hated Aaron Burr more. So when they came, Aaron Burr, because he'd known him for a long time, really thought that he was going to get that endorsement. But Hamilton was like, no, I'm endorsing Thomas Jefferson. And that's why he won. But then Aaron Burr was so mad at him that he went out and they did a duel, which is when you stand back to back and then you count to 10 and then you turn and you go, shoot. But most people shoot up in the air because that's what
was honorable.
That was honorable. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Aaron Burr was so mad. Boom! Shot him dead.
Shot Hamilton dead, yeah.
He shot Hamilton dead. Isn't that nuts?
That is nuts.
He
That's some
probably would have
crazy-
gone. He could have been president, honestly.
Maybe.
I mean, he did some shady
Probably
things, maybe
not,
not.
but that's some
he was
crazy
important.
tea.
That is, though.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.